outside buys are in the middle of the street. The worst part of being an undercover in the NYPD is 1 day a week you have inside buys. And basically what that means is, people, they'll call 911 and they'll say, the guy next door to me is selling drugs. The guy next door to me is selling this, is doing that. Well, those complaints get transferred to the narcotics division. And once they get so many complaints on a certain location, it goes into a file that goes to the undercover units. And then all of a sudden, our lieutenant comes in and says, okay, we're going to 160th Street, and this building, this apartment, you're gonna go in, and the guy's doing, he's doing crack. All right. I fucking hated inside buys. And I hated inside buys for a couple of reasons. A bunch of my friends got shot inside. Bad stuff, because when you get in those buildings, your transponders don't work because of all the concrete. Nobody can find you. So I used to, a Sharpie, right? You know what Sharpies are? I used to take a fucking red Sharpie and I'd have it in my pocket, the big thick ones. I had that red Sharpie in my pocket. So when I had to do an inside buy, I'd go in the building and I'd take that fucking Sharpie and I'd run it along the wall. I'd just write on the wall, right along the wall. And when I got to where I was going, right outside the door I was going, I put big letters, BK, like a graffiti artist, right?
Yeah.
Well, I graffitied the fucking location I was going to, because I was always worried if I get inside and something goes bad, at least when they come looking for me, they're going to be able to find where I'm at. If they take my transmitter, if the transmitter doesn't work, if I get into a gunfight inside and I'm down, there's nobody to call. You're not calling. You're not calling for help.
Had you developed a cover story by this point?
Oh yeah, I was from Jersey. I had Jersey plates on my car when I rolled up on a set. I had Jersey plates. In Washington Heights, this was the heart of crack and cocaine for all of Manhattan, right? It was a heavy Dominican population, just insane drugs at the time. We had a bunch of cops that were killed there. I came into that unit in 1989, early 89, on October 18th of 1988. We had 2 cops in separate incidents killed on the same night up in the Heights. Michael Busick was shot and killed around 9 o'clock at night, shot in the chest. And then Chris Hoban was shot in an undercover buy, just like I was doing. Went into an apartment with another kid. They're in the middle of doing a buy, and a fucking dude walks in behind him and says, yo, you know these guys? And they're like, no, we saw them outside. They're looking to buy. And they're like, well, there's a fucking shitload of cops about 4 blocks from here. Check them. And they started to search him. And I think Mike Jermaine had a gun down in the belly band in his lower abdomen. They found it, they touched it, then they got in a gunfight in the fucking apartment and Chris got killed.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff you're worried about. So I was an undercover for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. Got my shield, my detective shield, got transferred to major case, started doing some major drug investigations. And we had a big major case, a drug thing. Guy was doing heroin and cocaine, a Dominican, took him down during the course of one of the takedowns of one of his salesmen. Got in a gun battle. He shot my partner. I shot him. And then right after that, I got transferred to DEA, to the DEA task force.
How long did that gunfight last?
It was sort of a run and gun battle. So we watched this guy. We were doing a surveillance. We were up on a wiretap on a phone, and the guy called. He was from Massachusetts. He said, "I'm coming down to pick up 5 kilos." So we see him go into an apartment, comes out of the apartment, follow the car. He's in a livery cab, which we thought for us was good, right? I mean, livery cab drivers, they don't want nothing to do with nothing. They just, So, but evidently he knew this guy. We figured that out later because when we tried to stop him, he took off. And we stopped the car, had a uniformed car stop him. And as they tried to take the passenger out of the car, the fucking car takes off. So we get in a chase through Upper Manhattan, finally get him pulled over in front of these apartments on Dyckman Street. And he comes out and fires 3 rounds into the car immediately behind him. The first round, as my partner's in that car, puts up his hand like this, and the round goes through his arm, comes out of the car, falls out of the car. The second round goes right through the fucking headrest. And then I'm in the car next to him, so I open fire. That distracts him, and then we get into this run and gun battle up into the apartment complex. And he finally goes down. He's hit like 6 or 8 times. Lives. He's paralyzed, but he lives. He's still in state prison. But I thought it was funny. He got shot literally like 6 or 8 times. We'll have a cop standing at a door doing a search warrant. The guy will fire through the door. It'll hit the cop in the side where the vest isn't. It'll hit the cop's liver, lungs, heart. The cop will be dead in 10 seconds. This fucking guy gets shot 6 times, and he's still alive, still living today. But we took him down, and then right after that, right after that shooting, I got transferred, and I went to the DEA task force.
You got a medal for that, correct?
Yeah, I got the Medal of Valor for that one.
There are so many names you can call her, but the most important name is she's a Marxist. That's her ideology. She wants to destroy our country.
Are they doing this for the vote? Is that what they're trying to do?
She's the greatest flip-flopper in history. Can you imagine somebody say, we want open borders so the entire world can release their prisoners into our country?
Why are they allowing that?
Because Biden and Kamala and all of these people, they want it. I call her, I have different names, it's very interesting, very, very interesting. But there are so many names you can call her. But the most important name is she's a Marxist. That's her ideology. She wants to destroy our country.
Are they doing this for the vote? Is that what they're trying to do?
She's the greatest flip-flopper in history. Every single thing. I'd almost rather have somebody just stick with what they, where they come from, okay? Every single thing that she believed in her whole life. Defund the police. She was a defunder, big defunder. She was somebody that bailed out all the people that destroyed Minnesota and Minneapolis during the riots. She literally raised money to get these absolute thugs out of jail. And this is a woman, think of it, defund the police. When you're a defender of the police, that's about maximum, okay? That you don't get worse. But no drilling of oil of any kind. That means Pennsylvania goes bankrupt because Pennsylvania is the biggest, just about the biggest fracker. And it's a big percentage of their economic wealth and their employment. It's about 500,000 people. Pennsylvania, I can't imagine anybody from Pennsylvania voting for this person. But this is a person that shouldn't have been there. She tried to get there. She failed, and then she got there. It's the craziest thing. And I think she's going to fail because this country is not ready for a Marxist. I call her comrade because she's, that's a connotation. But this country is not ready for a Marxist as a president or a communist as a president. She may have gone into that. She skipped the socialist, that was skipped over. She's beyond that. And we're not ready for that, Sean.
Let's talk about the assassination attempt on your life.
Yeah.
There was another one I saw today.
Well, it didn't.
Potential.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the same thing. They had somebody that
It was a
they
potential.
took in today. but that wasn't a bullet going at 4,000 miles an hour at you. You know, that was
Where
not different.
is this coming from? I mean, we look at the context. There's a lot of speculation about this, but if you look at context, the media has been against you. Then there was Russiagate. Then there was the impeachment. Then they kicked you off all of your social media platforms. They prosecuted you. And the latest was there was an assassination attempt. Was this
So-
really a lone wolf?
You know, in history, if you study history, which you do probably more so than I do, they say Andrew Jackson was a president that was the most tormented as a president. They really went after him. Second was Abraham Lincoln, but he had the Civil War, so you would maybe expect that. And now people are saying, but nobody's close. Think of it. I won, but they impeached me twice. That's crazy Nancy Pelosi. She's no good, bad, so bad for the country. And an evil person, a sick person. I think she's a very sick person. But that whole, there's a large portion of the Democrats, like Adam Shifty Schiff, he'll probably be a senator soon. And he's just a bad guy. You know, he's a bad guy. Made up stories. There are a lot of bad people over there. And I think I can say that there's never been a president treated like this. Now, the reason I'm being treated like this is I want a strong military, I want a border, I want things that you would like. I want low taxes, I want great jobs, I want to make America great again. All of these things. Nobody cares about Biden. Nobody cares about Bush. Nobody cares about a lot of other people. I rebuilt our military. I cut regulations more than anybody in history. I'm against destroying our country based on environmental things that are not true. They're just not true. They want to destroy our country. They're called environmental extremists. And I don't know if they actually believe it. You know, it's interesting. They don't want us to produce any energy, they want our country to go to hell. And yet China's building a coal plant every single week. And coal is okay. They actually have methods now where coal becomes clean coal, all right? But think of it. Through the air currents, we can have the cleanest country. They can give up everything. They can give up the cows, which they'd like to. You know, the cows they want to give up. No more meat. They don't want cows. They don't want cattle. Next will be humans, right? Mm-hmm. But they can give up the cows. They can give up they can do everything perfectly, but China won't. And that air, over a period of about 4 days, flows right over the United States.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? And John Kerry would go over there in his, privately owned airplane. His wife was a Heinz, married to Heinz. And she's wealthy, and they have a beautiful plane. And he'd fly over there and spewing whatever they spew. But he'd meet with President Xi, and he'd talk about the environment. And President Xi is a great player. He's a great poker player. And he was very nice to him. And, oh, yes, we are working very hard. We're not going to do anything, just words. But think of it. That flows. The garbage flows down the Pacific, into the Pacific. Do you know the garbage goes right along our West Coast and actually hits? We take tons and tons of garbage from China and other Asian countries out of the water. We don't talk to them about it. We don't charge them anything.
You had mentioned
It's so unfair.
You had mentioned that China's producing a new power plant every week. How are we going to, if you get in, he's also said that the race for AI, whoever achieves that will achieve global domination.
Big deal, yeah.
How are we going to compete with China in the artificial intelligence space if we don't up our energy production?
If somebody like this Marxist gets in, I really don't believe it can happen. When she's exposed, I can't imagine. But if that happens, we're not going to be able to compete with anything. Mm-hmm. Oil, gas. We were energy independent with me, first time in ever. And we're soon going to be energy dominant. We have more oil and gas I call it liquid gold, under our feet than any other country, more than Saudi Arabia. We have more than any other country, more than Russia. We were going to be energy dominant, but we were already energy. We didn't need anybody's energy. We didn't need our ships going through areas near the Arabic world where the ships get blown out of the water. We didn't need anything from anybody. We're energy independent. Nobody can believe it.
Will we get
but we're
back
going to
there?
be energy dominant. Think of it. But AI is important, and other things are important. But AI, do you know that for AI, you will need more energy, electricity. What they need is electricity. That specific word. You will need more electricity than we have right now for everything. See this strip behind us, and this big building. Add it all up, everything in the United States, you'll need double the energy that we produce right now, just for that one industry, if we're going to be the big player and dominant. If we're not going to be the big player, then China's going to take over that industry very easily. And the problem is, so we have to produce massive electricity that we don't have. But the environmental impact statements won't allow us to do that. The rules and regulations that we currently have won't allow us to do any of it, not even a tiny fraction of it. But if I'm president, we'll be able to do it. And we'll do it through natural gas, which is clean, and we'll do it through primarily natural gas and nuclear. You know, nuclear now has become very good, very safe, and you build the smaller plants and you attach them. But nuclear is very powerful, very good. The wind doesn't work. It's very expensive, kills the birds, destroys everything around it. It's very, 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 very bad. It's the most expensive energy, wind. And then every 9 years, you have to replace the turbines. You know, they're made out of steel and they wear out. But we will create tremendous electricity for our company, for our country, and that will allow AI to compete.
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.
I'm in front of the television. I got it in the kitchen in the morning, and there's Ronald Reagan's blue eyes. And he says, we have absolute proof that the communist Sandinista government of Nicaragua is in the cocaine running business, cocaine trafficking. And there's Barry's plane, the fat lady, bellied in on the runway. And I thought, oh, shit, Barry has done it again. I'd heard he had switched over and gone with the police.
You'd heard that.
I'd heard it. Somebody told me that Barry may be working with him. I don't know who told me, but somewhere. I think the
So
guy.
before we get into that then, because how did you guys did communications just fall off? Because he was working for you.
Yes. Well, whenever I got arrested, Barry went and got the lawyers, and he sent a lawyer there from Baton Rouge in, robbed me, and and then he got Albert Krieger, the best lawyer that I tell you I ever seen, and he did a whole crew, and he had, I believe, 3 of my airplanes, and he gave Mari the money for him, 100%, helped her whatever he could, and but then I wasn't there, and I was just cut out of the deal.
Okay.
So he just kept on flying. So of course, he knew the people by then. It was too much together. I couldn't keep it apart. Didn't even try to. But now he's crashed his plane on the Nicaragua one runway there where we refuel, and the phone rang. And he said, "Roger, I got to see you. I'll come out tonight." At a French restaurant. I forgot the name of it. Says I'll be there at 9 o'clock. All right, Barry. So I went in at 9 o'clock in the room. Not a very big restaurant, and maybe 10 or 15 tables. All of them looked like 30, 40 years old, leather skirts and sports coats and blue jeans. And Barry's leaned upside the wall at the back, and he's gained weight. And I walk up to him and I say, "Barry, are you wired?" He said, "No, I'm not, Roger." I said, "Well, you just talk, I'm gonna listen." And he said, "All right." So I sat down with him, and he went to talking. He said, "Roger, I was protected there in Mina. You know about that." He said, when the shit hit the fan, they all ran, left me holding the bag. And I was indicted in in Miami, in Florida, Louisiana, and Arkansas, facing 3 life sentences. And so I've told everything. I've been before Congress. I've testified to everything that was going on. But you're under my umbrella. I told him I would not testify unless they protected you. So you and I are partners. He said, you've got to come to Miami and testify before a grand jury. Wow. I said, are they all DEA agents? He said, every one of them. I said, well, bring your head honcho over. He put his hands between his eyes, over his eyes, and the tears run down between his hands. He said, I just couldn't do it, Roger. I just couldn't do it. I'm so sorry, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do life in prison. So that's when I told him, bring your fella over. I felt sorry for him. I mean, I really did. So the guy came over, lanky fellow, crop duster from Alabama, I believe, Jake Jacobson. He's the one that was in that crashed airplane in Nicaragua. And he told me the same thing. He said, well, you can come tomorrow. He said, well, we had some Chevy Regal and got a little pie-eyed, and I liked him, except we was on different sides. He said, you can come tomorrow to Miami in first class with Mari, or I'll take you down in chains. And the only place you're going to ever see your family again as long as you live is in a federal prison visiting room, I promise you. That's all. I'll make sure to come first class. So I did. Mari and I went down to Miami the next day, and I went in to see a lawyer. I went to see Gould, is his name. I didn't realize his partner had been blown up and killed because he's representing a snitch. But he's supposed to have been the best at the time, and I went in to see him, and he just says, you know, he says, I'll represent you for $600,000, but I don't talk to snitches. I said, I'm not a snitch. He said, well, that's what you're talking about. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to get what you said. He said, listen, man, being a snitch is like being pregnant. You either are or you're not. He was nasty. He said, once you start talking, if you don't tell them everything, you will receive a life sentence because everything you've ever done, everything else they said about you will be used against you. He said, you got to tell everything from day one to now. And so I left his office and I thought, damn, that guy. I went to see another and he told me the same thing. And I said, listen, man, I've got to say something. I've got to. He said, you can't. If you're going to do it, you've got to do it all or you will be convicted and get life. So I went to that afternoon, I went to the courthouse. And I was going to tell him and so I was supposed to meet him like at 3 o'clock. And I was standing, it was hot, and I was standing behind a pillar, big marble pillars there at Miami Federal Court. And I was up the stairs, and here come the 3 cars. They had about 4 of them with their machine gun pistols in the front, and I think 2 in the front and 2 on each side of Barry in the back. They was looking out this way and that way with Barry as they come to the court. And Barry's car pulled right up and stopped beside me. And I just stepped down that step and hit the top of that car. Wham! You should have seen them. They tore that car up trying to turn around. I said, see how easy it would be? They didn't appreciate my humor. So I said, listen, I'm having trouble with lawyers. I'll get one tomorrow. And Barry said, use mine. I said, all right, give me your card. So he gave me the card. And I had no intention of it. So anyhow, I just trying to put it off so I didn't get arrested that night. So anyway, I went to a festival restaurant there, and Coral Gables, my favorite restaurant at that time, still is. I think it's closed now. And I was having dinner, and of course Barry knew it was, and he came in with Debbie, and we had dessert together. And I said, Barry, they're going to kill you, friend. Oh, no, this and that and the other. Fabio's in jail, no Cho's in the this and that. I said, Barry, they're going to kill you. There's no way on earth you're not going to get killed. And I hugged his neck. I might have kissed him. I said, Barry, they're going to kill you. And I took Mari and the children, and we fled to Brazil. And we was down there about 6 months, and I got word that Barry was dead, killed. And I shed some tears, told Mari and Miriam, and they cried. And the biggest snitch in the world dead, and I'm facing a life sentence, but I'm still sorry they killed him. But he should have known.
Who killed him?
The guy that was in the guy that flew up on the first load with me with a machine gun pistol. He's the one that killed him. He's still in Angola. There was 4 of them. One of them died, and 3 of them still left. up there. They're doing life, never going to get out. Ronaldo was his name. That ugly man. I mean, he was ugly. I'm sure he still is ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who killed Barry.
How long were you down in Brazil? 6 months, you said?
No, it's a little over a year.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Sean Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.
I mean, I've been lost at sea. So I spent a day and a half out in the ocean. Oh, am I going to be eaten by a shark? Am I going to thing? What am I going to do? Am I going to drown? Am I going to thing? Like, what am I going to do? You know, all that stuff that runs. And then I've been held under, I've been held under multiple times. That's what I saw in my head. I saw a skeleton, and then it had a life preserver, kind of raggedy life preserver, I was just going to be there. Like I was stuck there.
You talk about some near-death experiences that you've had surfing.
Yes, sir.
Can we go into some of those?
Yes, sir. I mean, I've been lost at sea. So I spent a day and a half out in the ocean, in Hawaii, about 60 miles offshore, which was a different kind of being near death. I would think that was just a longer time to think about it, but without really any imminent threat right away, right? So no imminent threat right away, but the whole possibility of hey, I'm 60 miles from shore. I won't be able to get back. I hope my EPIRB works, and I don't know if it does, and I hope something shows up to pick me up. But if it doesn't, so and I only had a good half a day to think about it, but it was good enough.
Yeah,
it's good enough to. I mean, half a day, half an hour. If you really think it's the end, oh, am I going to be eaten by a shark? Am I going to thing? What am I going to do? Am I going to drown? Am I going to thing? What am I going to do? All that stuff that runs. And then I've been held under, I've been held under multiple times. The truth is that, because I tried to think about it, I watched Alex climb, the climbing free solo, where he free climbs in Yosemite. And he does the free climbing with no ropes. And then they did a study on his brain, and they said his brain just does something different when he's scared. And I was trying to understand what that meant, why was his, and because I was trying to relate it to my own perspective. And what I thought is because he was exposed to dying and falling so often growing up. Imagine every time he went climbing, as soon as you were 100 feet in the air and there was rocks below you, if you fell, you die. Pretty much. That's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So he would go into that fear of dying, I'm going to die. And when you put your body under, and I'd be interested to hear what you think about this, but because he was in that situation so often, so many times, and didn't die, and the taxation on the system is so severe, right? You're so taxed from that. The body has to recalibrate, because the body, you didn't die the last 1,000 times you were in that situation, which you thought you were gonna, and we had to be in fight or flight with all the sensories on at full blast, and we're gonna have to turn that down. Mm-hmm. Right? I think the body would adapt. Of course it would adapt. Why would it wouldn't just continue to allow every time you were in that position to be in that same state and have that taxation, because it's hard on the system to do that. When you're up like that, it's you know how that is. You come up, you come down. And so I think it started, and because I was saying, for me, I got close to drowning so often as a child. So often, getting sucked out the pipeline in the shore break, being in a rip current and swimming against a rip current with no one around, no lifeguards, no people, and just, being underwater and coming up and thinking this is it, you're going to die. And you've done that how many times you did. Pretty soon your brain just goes, okay, well, you didn't die the last 500 times that you were in the rip current, and you're going to die. So we're going to adjust that, especially when you're in your development stage of your life. Right? Especially when you're growing. It's if you're an athlete and you grow up doing the sport that you're doing, your body will actually kind of grow to it, right? It's different than I grew up full age and then I start doing something. So I think that there's an adaptation. I know as a young kid that I was close to drowning once a week. Like it was like once a week I thought I was going to drown. Like you're being held under the water. You can't get to the top. And I think fear of drowning is such a primal one. It's like eaten by giant animals, burned, falling, drowning. Like I think there's like, I call them the primal fears, right? There's like probably 5 or 10 primal fears, but I know drowning's up there. That's why they do all that traumatic stuff with the SEAL guys for like to break you. Like they throw you in the deep end with a bunch of weights on you and tell you drown because it's part of it's part of that process of that, because that fear is so, and there's no air. Which probably induces the fear even more. But I think that's part of it. I think I went through that so much, so many times growing up as I went that I'd started to make my but I've been blown like in a way I've been blown like a landmine, like not a landmine, but like blown like I got hit by I was surfing Jaws and they were filming the new Point Break and I had a wave break behind me and blow me like into the sky, like, and then run me over after and fold me in half and then just hold me down underwater with power that, I mean, I think that if it was any other energy with that kind of power other than water, probably would have just ripped me in half. It was just water. There was a forgiveness to it. But I think that just those hold downs, the consistent hold downs. I mean, okay, injury, hitting the head with this and hitting that thing and all the wounds, but I've been in an avalanche. I fell through I got pinned at the bottom of a waterfall. So I was in Oregon in this White Salmon River, and there was a river rafting trip, and we were on this big raft, and they stopped before this giant waterfall. There was a big waterfall that probably had like 8 foot of volume. So like 8 foot thick of volume going off this waterfall. And so I was like, they pulled the raft in, they made us walk around. And I said to the guy, well, can't we go off that thing? He goes, well, we don't go off that thing. And I go, well, what if I want to go off that thing? He goes, well, I can't stop you. And so I go, okay. So I swam out into the river, and I swam right into the heart of it. And as I was going off head first, because I thought I was going to go like that, right? And I heard the guy yell feet first from the shore, so I kind of rolled over and turned around and went feet first, and I went over the waterfall, and I landed underwater on a big stone with the waterfall holding me down. So the waterfall, so I was on a stone with the waterfall just holding me like that, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, and I was like, can't move, and I tried to I couldn't press, and I'm sitting there, and I just got a vision of a skeleton with a life preserver on it. That's what I saw in my head. I saw a skeleton, and then it had a life preserver, kind of raggedy life preserver, I was just going to be there, like I was stuck there, and I ended up, after not being able to move at all, I ended up moving my leg, and when I moved my leg, it spun me out from the stone and spit me out of the back of the thing. And my friend was already swimming from the side below in the pool to come out because I hadn't come up. And I think for like, I don't know, a week or something on my shoulder blades and my whole back from where the water had just been, holding me down like that, just on my back, just like had me pinned. I was like, I'm just saying, when I was in Russia one time, helicopter snowboarding, and I was following some crazy French guys. And the French guys are like, we had a big meeting, and they said, when you're walking, we're on these big cornices, and there's these big giant things hanging off the cliff, and they're hanging way out. It's probably like, whatever, a couple 100 feet or more off the edge. And the guy's like, okay, when we're walking on these things, if you see stones, and you're walking on a cornice, if the stones are on your right, make sure you're on the left side. If you're on that, if the thing's hanging out. And I remember walking along, and I'm following this French guy, and I looked over and I saw a stone, and I went, hey, and I just fell through the thing. I didn't fall off the thing, but I fell into the cornice. So I fell down in this hole, like on a rock ledge inside the thing. And I'm sitting there, and the guys come running back, and they put a rope, they pull me out and everything. And then I just wanted to kill that guy after. And I'm like, I'm never listening to you again. If you ever, so after that, from then on, I was like, yeah, I don't care what he says. I'm looking like, and I didn't know anything about the mountains, but I wasn't going to rely on but I think, I think I've just had a bunch of those, but the water stuff happens so often, so much growing up in the, being sucked out and being pinned on the bottom, and, a lot of drowning.
Yeah.
A lot of drowning.
Yeah.
Mostly drowning.
To your point about kind of the fear stuff, overcoming fear, and we were talking about the guy climbing. I mean, I don't know that man. I've not heard of him. But, when it comes to the fear stuff, I mean, the second time you do it, your brain's telling you, hey, we've been here before, and then third time, and then again and again. And it creates, and the other thing with fear, I mean, you're doing it every time you get into a situation like that, adrenaline dumps to help you overcome the fear. Well, the adrenaline, you get addicted to that. And so how do you feel adrenaline? You got to put yourself in these situations like you're talking about. And it becomes this cycle. And then just like we talked about at the beginning, that becomes home for you.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Sean Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes, so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.
He said you can piss in it, you can spit in it, you can put snow in it. This guy was going in. There's even a dish on the moon that we transmit via laser information to every single week. The Navy has a ship that never has to come back for gas because it just takes the water from the ocean. When it got into the King's Chamber, he's surrounded by thousands of tons of magnetized crystal granite in this specialized box with a 2-to-1 ratio. Now, at some point, something happened where they had to install this extra box. It's a granite box that's inside the King's Chamber. People were saying, oh, this is a sarcophagus. I can't even lay in that thing. My knees have to be bent. It's not a sarcophagus. What it is, it's the same exact dimensions as the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant was a power plant device. We know this based on the descriptions in the Bible. And it's been replicated at 2 different universities by 2 different groups of people, and it generated so much power they had to shut it down, just based on the biblical information and instructions. When you take those measurements, it fits directly inside that box. And why did it fit in the box? Because the pyramid at some point had lost its ability to generate the maximum amount of power. And so that was needed to add an extra piece to fix the problem. And that's exactly what they did. Then the energy would shoot up through the apex. The obelisks are all made of crystal granite.
What do you mean the obelisk? What is that?
Those giant stones that stand up with the points at the top?
Okay.
Those are obelisks.
Okay.
They're all around the region. We have one at the White House, right? We have one in Rome in the center courtyard there. They took them and put them all around. The one in Washington is obviously, it's man-made, but the other ones around the world are all come out of Egypt. But what's interesting is those obelisks, they capture the ambient electricity from the atmosphere. And then if you have something called a JED, it looks like a Tesla coil. I'll send you some photos of this stuff so you can utilize it. It looks like a Tesla coil, and it's all over Egypt. Everywhere you look in hieroglyphs, it's everywhere. And they have cables coming out of them, electric cables. They were connected to their electroplating devices, and anything else they needed, light bulbs, anything that needed electricity was connected to the JED. The JED would capture the ambient electricity from the obelisk. The obelisks were like electric wire poles in your neighborhood, basically, but just doing it all wirelessly. And by that method, they were able to transmit the wireless energy all around the region. And the JEDs would capture that energy and they can power whatever they wanted. And so, now what's also interesting about the Great Pyramid, a small amount of that water would be pushed up into the pyramid and down into the Queen's Chamber. Now, the Queen's Chamber, when you analyze it and look at it and look at the x-rays of it, you discover something interesting. It operates like an electrolysis machine. Why electrolysis? If you use electrolysis with running water, you can extract the hydrogen atoms out of the water, which is what we do in different types of engines that we have right now. The Navy has a ship that never has to come back for gas because it just takes the water from the ocean, extracts the hydrogen atoms, and pushes it into a chamber for engine combustion, and they run on hydrogen. They don't run on gas anymore. Matter of fact, that's the wave of the new future. We have Rolls-Royce developed the airplane engine that runs on hydrogen, and all the cars, including all the EVs, are going to go in the garbage can. All cars are going to be hydrogen-based in the next 10 years. Mark my word. Remember today. So what they were doing, though, they were utilizing it for what astrophysicists use it for, communication. Astrophysicists communicate and send information out into space to connect with ET or talk to ET on the hydrogen frequency, the most abundant frequency in the universe. Now, when you look at the Great Pyramid, it's got these giant shafts on the sides that align with Orion, Aldebaran, Arcturus, and all these other star systems on specific time frames, Sirius. And so what's happening is on specific alignments, they were transmitting on the hydrogen frequency updates, in my opinion, this is now my own hypothesis, updates to those star systems. Because why have those shafts pointed at star systems, and why have them have the capability of shooting hydrogen through those shafts? To me, it's a communications device, the same way we're using right now today in modern astrophysics.
What are we using in modern astrophysics?
We take the hydrogen frequency and we piggyback our data, zeros and ones, on it, and we send it out into space. Looking and hoping that another race of beings, I think that they already know who they're sending it to. They're just saying, we're hoping. I think they're communicating, but that's a whole nother podcast. But sending it out into space, that another race of people can pick it up and then decode the zeros and ones and decode the message, basically, and then transmit the information back on the same frequency.
What makes you think that they've already made communications?
Well, to me, just based on the advancement in sciences and what looks and appears to be of NASA as a front, the fake space agency, in other words, doing all the things that are already done in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and still utilizing those same techniques today, knowing that we know that they're 300 years ahead of us technologically. They meaning the private corporations. Well, why aren't we seeing any of that tech being used? So I just believe that, and I know this 300 years ahead from my private meetings. So I have a tech company called First Class Space Agency. And I was privy to a TS clearance for private space meetings at the Space Symposium in Colorado a few years ago. And in this room, I'm sitting there with some of the top tech companies in the world in space, travel, and also ancillary parts for space, like radiation hardened computer circuits and everything else. And they're all talking about how advanced they are. And the number is 300 years ahead of the general population. So if they're 300 years of the general population, 300 years ahead, then what in the world are we doing with chemical rockets going up into space and all this kind of crazy stuff? Mm-hmm. So to me, when they say that they're communicating, I say, let me extrapolate a little bit more. They're trying to communicate. Let me extrapolate. You are communicating. It's just the way I decode it is there's something going on. They've probably made some kind of a type of contact at some point because they keep transmitting nonstop, up and down, nonstop. There's even a dish on the moon that we transmit via laser information to every single week. Who are we talking to on the moon? This has been going on for decades. Why are we doing this? So you got to pay those people to do that, so it's costing money. So there's a reason for this. So my hypothesis is that they may be communicating with somebody already. But I do believe that's what the Great Pyramid was used for, power generation. And when I say other things, you can calculate based on the base size of the pyramid and the height and the size of most of the stones average. You can actually calculate a lot of things. You can calculate the distance of the Earth to the moon, the distance of the Earth to the sun. You can calculate the speed of the Earth on its own axis.
Hold on. How can you calculate all this?
Well, I have all these calculations broken down, which have been analyzed by college professors, and they're blown away. I'll send you a sheet you can show on the screen for this, the breakdown of the mathematics, how to times and square all these numbers to come up with these calculations. You can calculate the tropical year, the sidereal year. You can calculate the speed of the Earth around the sun, the speed of the sun around the Milky Way. You can even calculate the speed of the Milky Way around the local cluster of galaxies that are out there. All this can be calculated by the construction. This is the brick masonry. This is the Freemasonry encoded into the Great Pyramid. This is the Mason information. It's all about astrophysics. It's all in there. It's all built into the pyramid, all in the construction process. Now think about that knowledge you have to have. You have to say, I want to have this, and this, and this, and I want to have it all built into the construction. Let me input this into my whatever kind of computer program they utilize to do this, and then it spits out this blueprint, and they build it according to that blueprint so that all this information is encoded in it at the same time it's being built.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. When it comes to, you had mentioned a little bit earlier that you think that all vehicles are going to go to hydrocarbon.
Oh, yeah. Hydrogen.
Correct? Hydrogen, excuse me.
The hydrogen atoms. Yes.
Somebody already developed this.
Yeah.
And they're
Stan
no
Meyer.
longer here. Is that his name?
Stan Meyer. I remember watching that commercial live on TV as it aired on the news station, standing right next to my mom. He drove this little buggy he built, run on water. You can go from New York to California on 1 gallon of gas. He said you can piss in it, you can spit in it, you can put snow in it. This guy was going in. And I was so amazed. I was like, this is crazy. This is incredible. Of course, he went to a restaurant where he met with some Pentagon officials, and then he ran outside and screamed, they poisoned me, and he died right there, right in front of his brother.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Sean Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.
And, you know, for people that think it's all peace, love, and happiness in Baghdad at that time, that our guys just started shooting willy-nilly, unprovoked, and all the rest, it had been a very dangerous week for us just in the 7 days prior, right? We had another convoy of guys that got ambushed and shot up on the Baghdad highway. Another one that had been hit by an EFP, right? An EFP is an explosive form penetrator. It's a copper plate in front of a coffee can full of explosives. And when you initiate that, the explosive goes off at 22,000 feet per second, turns that copper plate into a slug of copper going 8,000 feet per second and bored right through their armored vehicle. Fortunately, it didn't kill any of our guys that time, but it sent them to the hospital. We had a helicopter shot down just days before that. And then the day of Nusra Square, a car bomb goes off where we had a team. It went off outside of a venue where he had a team protecting a USAID official. And instead of hard pointing at that facility, which they normally would, all the Iraqis had run away, so they decided to move. And so, you know, in the chaos that follows, Raven 23, one of the teams, is called, and I'm not going to try to re-describe the masterful description you did sitting down with those guys, but to suffice it to say that traffic circles in Baghdad are like the trail intersections if you're hunting deer, right? If you're a deer hunter, or if you're an insurgent trying to hunt Americans, you hunt the traffic circles. And so they go to block the traffic, and some traffic doesn't stop, and shooting entails.
CQB, which is close quarters battle. Let's just talk about that specific training block. How was it? What were they doing? Were you guys hitting houses? Were you hitting
shoot house?
It
was, for us, it was because everybody's got a different background as far as, you know, each unit has their own type of CQB they do, whether, you know, you got a man high, man low, around the corner, different things. And so what they did is they walked us through it one time, and they said, I don't care how you did it, where you come from, this is how I want you to do it here. And so that way everybody's running like a standard format.
Yeah.
And we went through the shoot house several times. I think the first time was a dry run, second time was sim, and then, if I'm not mistaken, the third time was live fire. And so it was a
fast pace.
Yeah, it's fast pace, and if you couldn't keep up or perform, it was
get out,
window or aisle.
One big thing during that portion specifically was safety. So if you're in a stack about to go into a room, and you flag somebody, even, you know, the lower part of their leg. And for people that don't know, when you flag somebody, it's basically you're pointing your weapon at something that you don't intend to shoot. So
Even if it's just for a split second.
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate that. So if I'm holding a gun and I go like this and sweep you guys, even if it's just for a split second, that's an ejection from the course.
Yeah,
Yes.
they took safety violations big. That was a serious thing.
Yeah, to Dustin's point, and not to step on you, Nick, but it was trying to get everybody on the same page as what the stack looked like, and how they wanted you to move and flow through a room or through a hallway or whatever presented itself, and how everybody had their specific responsibilities. And to Dustin's point again, it wasn't necessarily, you know, you had guys from MARSOC, you had guys from SF units, from SEAL teams, and they just wanted everybody to be on the same sheet of music moving forward, to see really kind of how you operated as a team, if you were able and willing to do that.
That's extremely hard to do, you know, when you're coming. I mean, I remember doing it on the OGA side, and I thought it was a huge pain in the ass trying to get on the same page as the MARSOC guys, as the Green Berets, as the CAG guys, you know, the Rangers. And then, you know, and then when you throw soft and unconventional together, then it gets even trickier. So that's no easy task at all, because everybody has a different way of doing that. And so the reason you were probably doing CQB, because it's a reactive unit, correct? So do you think the reason you were doing CQB is if the principal was taken hostage, you would have to go in and extract that principal that you're protecting?
You've also got something that is called Alamo up. And what that is, if somebody Alamos up, is a principal gets hit on venue, right? Well, if the team can't make it out to their vehicles, what they're going to do is they're going to go find a hard point, and they're going to hold that hard point and basically put shooters throughout wherever they need to be. Then they're going to put the principal somewhere where it's safe as they can get them. And like us, you know, we were all on Raven 2-3, which is one of the TST teams. And so as a TST team, when something goes boom or bang, we're the ones that would go. And so with the CQB stuff that we were doing, if a team's Alamoed up, let's say on the 10th floor of a building in Iraq, well, then as a unit, we've got to be able to clear up and get them and then clear back down on the way back out. So, I mean, it was real life. You know, it wasn't just, hey, you're going to do this to check this box. It's, hey, you know, whenever you get to your team, everybody's going to start doing their own form and get whatever needs to be done. But, I mean, it was stuff that we could actually use. It wasn't just check a box.
Yeah. What does TST stand for?
Tactical Support Team.
Okay.
It's Quick React Force. All it is QRF, and most of our vehicles had two 240s, one in the front, one in the back, except for one that just had a teacup up on the top, which was one 240.
How long was the CQB portion, and how complex did it get? Were they throwing in live role players on that as well with hostage scenarios?
It was. It was 3 days of CQB training without the role players, and then at the end, basically it was like accumulation. It was like they taught us all this stuff along the way, and it was like vetting. And then at the end, your final vetting was attack zone principles. So it was like, basically, this is all we've taught you. This is all you've learned. And then they put it to the test. And, you know, the instructors were the bad guys. They're the ones shooting at us. So, yeah, it was really good. And they had run those scenarios countless times. And so you're coming into it fresh. So they've got the upper hand for sure. The instructors know that area like the back of their hand. So it was awesome. It was great training.
China views itself as the center of the universe, the Middle Kingdom. And so they're trying to restore themselves to that kind of grandeur in world leadership. And the question is, does America want to are they comfortable being pushed into second place by a lot of I would say, self-inflicted wounds to ourselves, or are we going to rally and organize and do what made America effective and free and wealthy, and return to those basic values and focuses, or do we continue on this woke nightmare and drive ourselves into second or third or worse place?
What do you think's going to happen?
Elections do have consequences, and they have to have consequences. And I think the most important thing to focus on in the next election is control the bureaucracy, to actually have accountability for the federal government. Because I think the real constitutional crisis is we're supposed to have 3 branches of government, right? Executive, legislative, judiciary, but we have 4. We have a permanent state bureaucracy that's accountable to no one, that Congress can yell at, and that really changes anything. The White House can yell at, but can't hire and fire most of the bureaucrats under its wing. CIA is different. Actually, CIA and the Peace Corps are the only 2 federal agencies in Washington where the civil service rules don't necessarily apply. So the director can change and fire quickly. So the CIA should be quick to fix under right leadership. But beyond, call it reform and control of the civil service bureaucracy, and to pare it down, right? I hate the fact that the 5 counties surrounding Washington are per capita the wealthiest in the country. That's a very unhealthy sign that much wealth is sponged off the imperial city to the detriment of the rest of the country where actual normal work is done. And the second thing is, I think we have to restore competitiveness in competition inside America. The Federal Trade Commission and the antitrust parts of the government have to be cleaned out and reworked, and the amount of monopolies or duopolies or oligopolies, right? Where you have a couple of companies that have such control over the markets that it squeezes all the competition, right? Look at the beef industry. All the beef in America is processed by, I think, 4 major processors. All the farmers who do the hardest part of the work for years, months and years at a time, they absolutely get screwed because all the processors are controlled by those big 4. Okay? Whether it's big beef or big chicken, and the same in the airline industry, the same in big tech. America was great when it was lots of small companies with lots of sharp elbows and everybody scrambling and innovating and really pushing that competition. But when you have Washington reinforcing and scratching the back of big tech and big business, it's extremely dangerous for the future of the country.
Wife has breast cancer, new baby, you're out of the SEAL teams, the idea of Blackwater.
Yeah, in my experience in working up for those deployments, we moved around a lot. So I thought training was very fragmented. You're going to Tennessee, Nevada, West Virginia, bouncing all over the place, Puerto Rico. And I'd thought a lot about seeing what the SEAL teams, a private facility in Tennessee, Mid-South, right, where the SEAL teams used to go. Maybe they still do. I thought, now someone has to do that on an industrial scale. And I was in an unusual position to do that, right? I mean, so in the late 90s, you have this peace dividend and defense cuts, and they're closing a major base per week across the country, right? Whether it's an Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine base. There was bases closing and ranges closing and all the rest. So this idea of building a private facility was counterintuitive to most. Like every smart financial advisor I ever said that's a terrible idea. But build it and they will come. I didn't know anything about development, land development, anything about government contracting, or really anything about business. But I had a pretty good idea that there was a demand and that the teams needed something like that. And you kind of go back to the well that you know. of the people you trust, right? So I hired the 2 training officers from SEAL Team 8, Ken Vieira and Jim Sorowski. Jim came later because he wanted to go be a cop after he retired. But Ken and a guy named Al Clark, and we got Jim Dehart, who had been the facilities guy at Dev Group. I mean, an unknown secret is that our first shoot house was built by all the Dev Group maintenance guys who came out on the weekends for pizza and beer, and they welded up one of the largest and still most effective shoot houses in the country. So it was, finding land. I wanted to have it within an hour drive of Norfolk to make it easy for people training or living in Norfolk to come and train, do what they have to do, and still make it home in time for their, dinner with their families. And we had to go through all kinds of ass pain with the 2 counties because one county rejected us, the other county accepted us. Camden accepted us, and so went through all the machinations of that, and then built it. And actually, our first customer was from the West Coast, a West Coast SEAL platoon that came to Blackwater, and we just kind of ground along for the first few years. And it was really our target business that saved the business early on because we had very destructive customers who destroyed everything that we'd ever bought on the outside. And Jim Dehart and a very practical, down-to-earth, I would say solid state mentality, built these steel targets, which were indestructible. And other customers that came loved them. And so I remember at the end of the fiscal year, one night on September 30 at 11:55 p.m., the fax machine started, and out came an order from the FBI, oddly enough, to equip like 15 field offices with our target systems. And that really kept the lights on at Blackwater for the year, because the training business wasn't strong enough to pay the bills. So training and targets kept it going together. And then when Columbine happened, we ended up building a big mock-up of a fighting city. We built it out as a high school, and it was called Are You Ready High School? Because the thing about Columbine is you had all these police departments. Columbine was a active shooter incident early in the 90s before, unfortunately, it became a more commonplace event. We did all these departments with all this nice gear standing around outside, and nobody going in to solve the immediate threat. And so I guess our contribution in our own way was to train tens of thousands of SWAT officers from a surround and negotiate mentality to a whoever's there, take a stack of 2 men or 4 men or however many you could put together, go move to the sound of the guns and put that fire out. And that was the first big volume program we did. Our first classified program was for the Coast Guard, oddly enough, teaching them how to shoot drug boat motors out of a helicopter with a 50 cal, right? Because you had all kinds of drug boats, and the helicopters would interdict them, and they'd say stop, and they'd say yeah, fuck off, right? And they would keep going and keep going. And so we taught the Coast Guard how to shoot each of those motors out with a 50 cal, so that by the time they were arrested, the drug runners were very happy to be arrested and rescued.
He told me that we were going to get an escort from JFK Warfare to take us over to a place called Range 19. Is it thundering outside?
It is.
Okay. I didn't know if you'd set me up. But where was I? I apologize.
You got selected to go to Range 19.
Yes, sir. Yeah, they called us. He called me up, said that we had an escort coming from JFK Warfare to meet us and take us to a place called Range 19.
Just real quick, what was your dad's business as a contractor?
It was turnkey. Originally, it started out doing residential and commercial construction from the monolithic slab to turnkey. Everything was subcontracted in-house. So it's whatever you needed, as long as you had plans.
It was construction.
Right. That was the main purview. Just
Why do you think
construction.
you guys got selected to do this?
Well, as long as my dad was there, he's always had hunting land in North Carolina. And a lot of the guys from group that he met there would come down to his land, go hunting with him. A couple of the Delta cats that he knew take us on their planes. We'd go down to Arkansas and do some duck hunting. And it's all over the U.S., Montana, Colorado, Mesa, elk hunts, bear hunts. Yeah, it's just the guys who were into it, that's how they got tied in. And he did submit everything that he did through the Army Corps of Engineers. That's where he would submit all of his bid submittals for the contracts, like the ForceCom building that they built on Fort Bragg. He was responsible for the top 3 levels of it. And but as far as how he got tied in to do the work around McKellar's Lodge during the SF compounds, I have no idea. We didn't talk about that in that sense. So, yeah, I just assumed it was the guys that he had met, and I knew him well enough just not to ask questions. They got the bids into where it
needed to go.
Say again?
They got the bids into where it needed to go.
Right.
Okay.
And it's not like it was a public bid. Not everyone could.
Yeah.
Because I imagine there were things that they weren't supposed to see, and we just weren't naturally curious people. So it's not like they had to worry about us saying anything.
Yeah.
The day that I met him up there, like I said, the escort comes to meet us. It's one of the guys that he knew that he had hunted with. I didn't know this gentleman. But they pick us up in a van. We get in the back of it. They take us out about 15 minutes. And I could tell it was going towards the direction. I don't know if you're familiar with Fort Bragg.
I'm not.
Okay. There's only one direction you can go to get to the live fire ranges, to get to the drop zones and things like that. So I assume we were headed towards Sicily or Normandy drop zone because that was the direction we were going. The van that they had us in, it didn't have any windows. You couldn't see to the front. It was just a cattle car. And we were joking they were going to take us away, ask him what he did, and we're going to head to Leavenworth for a little while. But we get there, and as soon as the door opened, it looked like a literal dump. There was just trash everywhere. Not like people just leaving stuff out. It was an actual dump. That was a 45-degree concrete door setting out of one of these hills that was directly in front of us, no further than you and I are to each other now. And so we go inside, meet another escort in there, take us to this freight elevator. We get in there, there's 2 series of buttons, didn't have any writing on it. One of the guys looks at my dad and is saying to both of us, keep your head down, your eyes on the heels of the man in front of you, or you'll be shot. And we kind of started giggling because, at least I knew one of the guys was one of his buddies, people that he used to hunt out with. And the other guy, I recognized him as the guy who we'd went hunting with before. I knew later on that they were both Delta operators. If they were still active, I have no clue.
Do you know their names?
I do.
Do you want to say their names?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And I'll tell you later why. But yeah, hell no.
So you're seeing familiar faces, which makes you comfortable,
right?
And you don't realize how
the shitstorm I just stepped into. Yeah, absolutely not.
What exactly were you guys there to do?
What he told me was that we were going down below ground to set up a shoot house. An indoor live fire range that was going to be underground. Nothing new. Again, I didn't think anything of it. We had done other shoot houses before with the open tops that can be viewed from above.
Mm-hmm. With a catwalk.
It didn't
even phase you.
It was just another day at work.
Okay.
And I was just there to help him out. But we get down, the doors open, and the first thing I see are these personnel connexes off to my right, the smaller ones, not the the larger ones that you see scattered around, or like the ones you'd see on a big rig carrying around. These were the small ones. You would throw your personal gear in to go before you get shipped overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I looked past them, I could see this giant monolithic slab just sitting there. At first, it didn't, once again, it didn't set off any alarms. I didn't think much of it, but the closer we got to it, I could feel this intense vibration. But you couldn't hear anything. It was dead silent in there. The loudest thing was the footsteps that I could hear. And
what did the vibration feel like?
It felt like being at a concert, standing next to one of the speakers, and
without
the bass
the noise
just permeating through your body without the noise.
There was zero noise.
Zero.
Just vibration.
Absolute zero. I could still hear myself breathing over this, but inside, it was such a strange feeling to have. So the closer I got, I was like, well, I got to check this out. So I go down to one knee, faking I got to tie my boots, and then I glance up underneath it, and there's absolutely nothing underneath this damn thing. Nothing holding it up whatsoever.
What did the slab look like?
It just looked like a granite slab, but the sheen on it is what caught my attention the most. It was kind of in between being polished or just completely translucent. There was something behind it, but you could tell it had a smooth surface to us. And the only lights that were on in that hangar that we were in were directly over our head, where we were walking through that walkway. And
how big was the slab?
Oh, God. It was about 20 foot long. It was about 7 foot tall, and I couldn't tell how wide it was. By that point, I was already directly in front of it.
So there's it would be impossible for a human to even think about picking something like this up.
Oh, there's no way.
Okay.
Even with the construction that we've done, if you had to pick up something like that to move it anywhere, you would need at least 3-4 cranes.
Oh, wow.
Herrera could tell you better.
Okay.
The scope of equipment that it would take just to get it off the ground, not even to transport it to another location. But at this point, I'm still down on my knee, and I'm looking, and behind it, I can see 2 people standing. The only thing I can see is their feet, but there's this boulder directly behind it, and it's on the ground. And I glance over my shoulder, and there's a guy with his back turned to me standing in front of another boulder identical of the other one that I could see up underneath the monolithic slab, and he's just pushing it with one hand. And then I assume he's pushing it in the other direction because it's just freely spinning, no wobble. It's like it was attached to the top and the bottom, and it was paper mache. That's how easily this guy was just spinning it around. Wow. Now, at this point, the escort behind me kicks me in the back, says, let's go. So we get up, keep going, go down a flight of stairs. That's when we get to what we call the shoot house. You could see old lanes where they had actually used it before as a live fire range underground. And we'd probably only been down there 20 minutes maybe. Father was taking notes on the dimensions, what we needed, what I guess he understood what they wanted. And I know that we had to replace the walls. It's inconsequential to the story, but we had to replace the rubber on the walls for the shoot house. And in that amount of time, we go back upstairs, exact same route that we took on the way down, and everything's empty when we get to the hangar again. Everything, the 2 boulders in the back, the monolithic slab, all of it is absolutely gone.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Sean Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes, so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.
How did you get out of that country?
I'm pretending I'm a diplomat. I'm covered in tattoos and there's a room full of machine guns. This guy turns up and he's ringing the doorbell and he just shoots the camera. This is the first time I felt helpless. I genuinely felt like there's no one coming to get you now. They come through that door, you're going to fight or you're going to die, which was my preferred course of action. I'll barricade myself here and if I have to. I'd made that decision. We put him on a British warship and then a few years later he killed a bunch of kids at an Ariana Grande concert.
What were you guys doing in North Africa?
So I was on a small team, 6-man team. We were operating at Rich. People talk about our med timelines. There was like 24 hours. Like there was nobody else there. But I flew into the airport on a British Airways flight, and we were gathering information. We were working out which militias that we could potentially look to use partner forces for further operations down the line. We were trying to find and recover potential chemical weapons that had been left after the fall of the regime. We were on a fact-finding mission, essentially. It was a low-vis operation, no camouflage. Everything that we needed was already there. They'd taken it out there, so you didn't fly into country with guns, you didn't fly in with nods, it was all there. And when I flew in, it was on a British Airways flight, and it was all good for about 10 days. And then the country imploded. 2 militias, one from the east, one from the west, that just basically went to war with each other, and everyone fled the country.
What year is this?
2014. Yeah, 2014. I think if I'm right, we are probably, if not the only team that's ever had to deny a safe house in time, like in situ, like real time. We got rolled up by pure luck, or bad luck, depending on how you look at it. Basically, our compound was situated in the middle of a long road, about 1 kilometre in length. And on one side of the road, you had one militia. On the other side of the road, you had another militia, and they were just going at it. But they were going at it with everything, from grad rockets to ZSU 234s. I've never seen weapons like that. That was all out scrapping. And we just happened, by pure bad luck, to have a safe house in the middle of that location. It wasn't targeted at us. It wasn't something that they knew about. But half the team are in, the other side of the country doing a meeting 3 hours away. And I'm in the safe house with one other guy, one other operator, a signaller, a pool boy called Ali, who's a local national, and another sort of expat guy who's probably late 60s, early 70s that we used to employ to like fucking paint stuff and, odd jobs basically. He was a Brit. So we've got this mix match of people inside of this house when all this is going off. And it started off quite gentle. It's, just a bit of gunfire here and there. It wasn't normal, but it wasn't anything to be worried about. But then throughout the day, it just ramped up and up and up. And the guys were racing back as far as they can, or as fast as they can, to come and help us out, basically. It's a fucking funny story. Like, we're dressed as diplomats. Now, these safe houses, you know what they're like. They're supposed to be low vis, but after each team comes in, they're like, oh, we need this, now we need that, and now we need this. So basically, before you know it, you've got a room full of machine guns and suppressors, you've got DEMS charges, you've got maps, you've got fucking secret equipment. There's a whole bunch of shit in there that we cannot afford to let be stolen or give to the enemy, So it wasn't that low vis at this point. And I'll never forget this. There was an armored personnel carrier that was like sat. There was an outer gate and an inner gate, and it was sat at the outer gate. And we made the phone call back to HQ in Hereford, and we were like, "This is on top. There are rounds hitting the building at this point. It's like, what do you want us to do?" And they're like, "Well, don't do the destruction plan yet. Just wait out and see if it goes away." And we were like, "Thanks, that's great advice. Like, give me an asset." And they were like, "Oh, we haven't got any assets." So it's like, you just ride it out. The team's on the way back. And then they're like, are the rounds in and around your position? And I'm like that, holding up the phone, like, yeah, you can hear them smashing the side of our building. Said, well, okay, cool. Speak with the guy who's the team leader, and on your call, if you need to do the destruction plan, do the destruction plan. The destruction plan was a fucking chisel, a metal tin with some fuel, and a lighter. That was it. Completely, we learned so many lessons there. We got it completely wrong. But there was a whole bunch of equipment there, secret equipment, secret terminals, computers, never mind all the fucking machine guns. Like, we're trying to pretend we're diplomats, Sean, right? So I've got a fucking double-breasted jacket on, do you know what I mean? And a shirt, and I'm pretending I'm a diplomat. I'm covered in tattoos, and there's a room full of machine guns. Like, you make that make sense. It's not a good look, is it? And we don't want them people coming into the house to find that, because they're going to think we're up to no good.
open.
What do you think, Sean?
We're high.
So they breach the outer wall, and now it's like, okay, cool. We need to start this destruction, because there's one more gate basically, and if they get into that gate, they're into our compound. Worst case, they'll kill you. Then it's like a sliding scale back up. There's like, the best case is they'll steal everything in the house. They'll fucking probably capture you and hopefully give you across to, some sort of friendly unit. Maybe they'll fucking hurt you a bit. Maybe they won't. Or they'll sell you to, some extremist group. You don't even know who these dudes are. They're all high. They're all fucking full of adrenaline. They've got a bunch of dudes that are clearly military with a bunch of, military equipment in a house. It was a very dicey situation. There was the teams driving back as quickly as they can. And then we were like, we've got to do the destruction plan. So it's funny. You've got like the pool boy, Ali, the pool boy, with a chisel, doesn't speak a word of English, smashing up like top secret hard drives and all this sort of stuff. And we're trying to like work out what's got a serial number on it. What can we leave? What can't we leave? The guy next to me, he's like on the loudspeaker now. He's broken, speaks broken, Arabic. He's like, we're diplomats this, we're diplomats that. These guys are outside like that. And it really hit home. We had like a Ring doorbell, like the camera. Mm-hmm. And this guy turns up. And if you were to draw like a radical Islamist terrorist, you'd draw this guy like British DPM trousers, chest rig, AK-47, big beard and a football shirt, like a red and white football shirt. And he's ringing the doorbell because our compound looks different from everyone else's compound. It's got high walls, it's got security on it, it's got barbed wire on it. He's now ringing the doorbell, and you just see him look up. And he sees the camera, and he just shoots the camera. But it was about as close as that front door is over there. Like, not only did the camera go black, I could hear the weapon report. And I'm like, we're in a fucking serious situation here, because if these guys come through that gate, we're gonna have to. We've got a couple of options. One of them is you fight to the death, which was my preferred course of action. I had a machine gun by the door, and I was like, I'll barricade myself here, and if I have to, rather that than get captured. I'd made that decision in my head. I was like, no, I'm not fucking letting these dudes take me. No fucking way. I'll die on my sword. They're not going to expect the level of violence that I'm going to give them when they come through that door. They just won't expect it. And I might get away with it for a while, and hopefully somebody will come and help me. But I was fully prepared to go the whole way there. I resigned myself to that was going to happen. Another course of action we contemplated was breaching a hole out of the back door, basically, and running across some open ground, which again was not a great option. Not a great option. Luckily for us, they kind of gave up on trying to get in that compound right then, but they got into the other compounds that had less fortifications. So now we've got 3 houses. We're the middle one. Houses either side have now got guys on the roof. I remember looking out the window, and there's a dude with a Dragunov up there, and I'm like, that's not good, because at some point the guys that he's shooting at are going to realize he's on that roof, and they're going to start smashing all these buildings. So I was like, fuck me, this is not ideal. Meanwhile, the guys are driving back as fast as they can, trying to navigate through all the checkpoints and all the rest of it. But how they do it is they've just got lines, basically. The first line will come up, they'll expend all their ammunition, then the next line will come up, and they just do that all day. And then they build the berm, and then they get behind the berm, so on and so forth. So this is not going away. This is a very, very serious. This is the first time I felt helpless. I genuinely felt like there's no one coming to get you now. This is it. If they come through that door, you're going to fight or you're going to die. So it was dicey, and we're carrying on with the destruction plan. Then on the JTAC at the time, we're going to throw you an asset, AFRICOM. They're going to send you an asset, and I'm like, thank God for that, something, And they sent me a P3 Orion. Do you know what P3 Orion is?
I don't.
It's like a surveillance bird, but it's not armed, Sean. So I'm like, fucking yeah, cool. Check this fucking dude in. At least I've got some Hellfires or something, or do a show of force. And it's like, yeah, we have to stay at this altitude, and we've got no munitions. I'm like, fuck, no good to man the beast to me. That, do you know what I mean? I want jets, not coming. So anyway, long story short, the guys finally make it back through the Terps. They, the fixers basically negotiate through the militias. The militias then give us a guide. They take the guys all the way to the front door, and they pull in through the gate. Basically, they've spoken to the guys that are outside. They were fairly friendly. They were a little bit pissed off. They had to stop their gunfight to get us Brits out of the situation. But they sort of coming through the gate, and the team leader's like, "We've got 2 minutes, so we have to fucking empty that house in 2 minutes. Anything with a serial number on it, DEMS charges, fucking rockets, fucking belt-fed weapons, rifles, NVGs, suppressors, comms kit. It's a lot. You know, this is a fucking established safe house. So we're just fucking throwing everything in the back of these Land Cruisers, and then the old guy, he's like fucking having a heart attack almost. He's not in a good way. He's panicking. Ali the pool boy's running around with the chisel still. You know, the signaler's losing his mind because he's the one that signed for all this equipment. So we're all bundle it in, and just as we're about to go, the 2IC, a guy called George, comes running back. We had this Alsatian. He bought this Alsatian from somewhere and had a bad leg. His name was Rix. So he comes back, and now we've got this fucking stupid dog in his hand. He's throwing the dog in the car, and it was just such a weird, surreal moment. But it was like, that was my first taste of like low vis operations. And they're not really my thing, if I'm honest, Sean. It wasn't really something that I was excited about. If I couldn't put a plate carrier on and run around at night, you know, assaulting buildings, I wasn't really interested in it. But it was definitely a good education for me. We conducted a NEO, which is like the evacuation of entitled personnel, so we had to do all of that. Interesting story on that one. Completely not our fault and random, but one of the people that we brought off and put onto a British warship that had docked up, HMS Enterprise it was called, he ended up being the bomber of the Manchester Arena.
No shit.
Yeah. He was the guy. This was probably a few years before, but we fucking got him out. Yeah, and I don't feel bad about it because I can't. So if I let my fucking head go down there, it'll fucking. But yeah, it's just mental, isn't it? That like he escaped that country because he had a entitlement to do so. We put him on a fucking British warship, sailed him back to the UK, and then a few years later he fucking clacked himself off and killed a bunch of kids at a fucking Ariana Grande concert. That's the mentality of these fucking people, you know?
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.
You're collecting signals intelligence. When we would take the B-2 over to air shows, all of a sudden you've got an aircraft, like a helicopter hovering right over in front of the B-2. No.
Basically a plant.
Well, I mean, guys go out to the bar and they start talking about what they're doing on base.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And you basically just invited a whole host of people in that you don't know.
All the farmland within the U.S. being bought by China or Chinese companies. Is that?
Well, I think, again, there are multiple likely reasons for that. One is just if you have a lot of money in China and you want to have an escape route, transferring that money into some kind of real asset is very important. You don't want to keep it all liquid because that can be seized. So getting some kind of real property somewhere outside of China can be a way that you provide for resources if you have to escape. So a lot of the Communist Party do that, right? Because you can be in good favor at one time, and then, you know, very quickly, like we saw with Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, you can be out of favor, and then you have nothing. And so a lot of it, I believe, is getting assets outside of the country for themselves and their family members. Another is, and in the Communist Party, the way that they look at what's called the Huaqiao, or the expatriates that are outside the country, they look at them as a resource, just like a citizen lives within China. And so there may also be an interest, for instance, to build facilities within that are in strategic locations. There might be an interest to be a part of the food supply, you know, to provide security. So there's a lot of things where your individual interests can align with the Chinese Communist Party interests, and that's why, you know, property can be purchased. It could also be for influence. And, you know, as I was telling you, you know, we had Faraday Futures, which was an EV company that was building a factory outside in Nellis Air Force Base. And this was when I was still in uniform, where the mayor of Las Vegas comes to the wing commander at Nellis and says, hey, please don't say anything about this factory because I want to have jobs for Las Vegas citizens. So it can be a way to also influence, local politicians, state politicians, federal politicians about how things that you want them to do. I'm going to go build something in your district so that I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Now, the asks are not going to be, deliberate, like, obvious, support us if we invade Taiwan. It's going to be more along the lines, these are our interests, and you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. In the case of the Faraday Futures, okay, now the Chinese Communist Party has built this advanced manufacturing facility right after one of our most strategic air bases in the United States, where you can start doing all kinds of intelligence collection and whatever. It can be a base for that. And so there's no like one reason. I think people want one reason. There's no one reason. There's a multitude of reasons that come through the relationships that are created by investing in real assets or in companies here in the United States. And you may not even understand what all those opportunities and benefits may be. All you know is you've just created a tie. You've created a relationship that can be exploited at some time in the future. I mean, this is a well-known intelligence technique, right? Gain an asset, cultivate that asset. You may not know where that's going to go. You may be like somebody that maybe has an opportunity to rise to some level of prominence within a society, but you've got them. You've got a relationship, and over time you figure out how you're going to exploit that, and that's what they're so good at.
I mean, could you talk a little bit about how they would extract intelligence from a factory next to one of our most strategic air bases?
Right. You're collecting signals intelligence. You've got people working there, so they're downtown in the casinos and the bars collecting humans. So you just think about you've got the people, you've got the technology, you've got the geography to basically set up a perfect place to. I mean, a consulate in the United States or an embassy in the United States is the same type of thing. It is a resource to gather intelligence. That's why we shut down the consulate in Houston. So you can all the forms of intelligence, all the ints. That's a base for that capability.
I mean, when you talk about human and signal intelligence, I'm trying to make this more real. I understand it, but I can't explain it as well as you can, I don't think. What kind of intelligence could they be extracting from that airbase? I want to make it more real for the everyday listener. So first of all, it's off the departure end, so you get a real close look at the airplane and the underside of the airplane as they go over. So, and then with SIGINT, you're going to be able to collect information on transmission. Now, where you might be saying, "Hey, I'm not going to turn on something here on the base because I don't want to run it through tests." Because this is going on. So it basically begins to force you as the operator to change how you do things in order to prevent revealing certain things. And we already do a lot of these things already for overhead intelligence collection. But having somebody right next door is a whole other effort. Like, for instance, when we would take the B-2 over to air shows, all of a sudden you've got an aircraft, like a helicopter, hovering right over in front of the V-2. No, what are they doing with that aircraft? Are you using radar to basically understand the characteristics of the airplane and how it uses that? It's hard to tell. But once you're within the fence line, there's all kinds of stuff that you can do that gives away secrets that we don't want to give away. And then with the human intelligence piece, I mean, basically what they could do is create an asset, whether that's sex exploitation, financial reasons, and then you have basically a plant.
Well, I mean, guys go out to the bar
base.
and they start talking about what they're doing on base.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And you basically just invited a whole host of people in that you don't know. We were like, oh, well, they're just workers. Well, workers in China are assets of the Chinese state by law. Right? So you're inviting people that are part of the intelligence apparatus because by virtue of the fact they're Chinese. And what the Chinese Communist Party will say, well, then you're being racist. No, you have to recognize that this is the way that they orient their society and the way that they use their citizens. They co-opt their citizens. Like you and me, citizens of the United States, no longer serving the government. Well, in China, we are. Everybody is. And if you don't, then you find yourself, in a bad space with the government. So you just have to understand that this is the way that their society is arranged, and this is the expectation.
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.
Pulls out this big dagger, and I just smile and say, "You're not going to try and kill me with that, are you?" He's like, "Chris, may God bless you many times this day." I've done close to 1,000 door-kicking missions, and there's nothing was ever like that day. Nothing. I unlocked some sort of superpower on that day. I do something that I shouldn't have done. Just common sense, nothing to do with drills, procedures. I stopped my vehicle, put the window down and say, hey buddy, do you want a lift? Something compelled me to pick him up to say, do you want a lift? And why I did that, I would not have normally done that. But something compelled me to do that. So a big smile, and he runs over and gets into the car. Start driving off, and he's like, oh, thank you so much for this. What's your name? I'm like, it's Chris. And he's like, tells me his name. And then he looks and says, how old are you? So I'm like 43. He goes, I'm 43. So when were you born? I said, September. He's like, I was born in September. What day were you born? And I said, 15th. He's like, I don't know what day I was born, but this is a good sign because that means in September 1975, Chris and his name were both born. And he chuckles. He's like, he says some other stuff I can't really recall. Driving a bit further, and he reaches into his pocket. My internal spider sense is not triggered here. I don't feel threatened or anything. And he pulls out this big dagger. And it's an odd dagger. And what I found was odd was curved, but it had a double tip. So I had two tips at the end, which I'd never seen. And I just smile and say, you're not going to try and kill me with that, are you? And he's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. This is, I carry this when I'm traveling on this road in case I come across any demons or evil spirits. It comes in very handy. And he chuckles to himself and puts it away. So then moving on, and I turn to him and say, judging how you're dressed, I take it you're going into the city. And he's like, no. Please just drop me off at the first village we come to. And I said, we're approaching one now. And it's an African village, so it's an African village. And I went, this village? He's like, yes, but don't take me into the village. Drop me just off outside. So, okay. So as we come to a stop, he opens the door. And then as his foot hits the ground, something happens. His foot hits the ground and his face changes. When I say changes, it's still the same man. But it's a bit like if I was, do you know when someone offends you and you pull the face you're from going from smiling, you'd be all serious, what? His face changed. And then he said, Chris. And when he said Chris, I felt it in my heart. It wasn't loud, but it was loud.
It was stern.
It wasn't like he didn't shout Chris, but he could have. And it's hard to explain. It wasn't loud, but it was loud. It wasn't loud, but it was deafening. He's like, Chris, may God bless you many times this day. And then like that, his face just snapped out of it. And he's like, thank you, thanks. Back in his normal voice, normal face. And he closed the door and I drove off. And I got about 150 yards down the road. I couldn't see him again. I think he might have just gone into a house or a hut or whatever. And I kind of thought that was odd. But 30 hours later, after the most remarkable day of my life, I came to think about it a lot more.
What happened?
Well, then, a few hours later, 5 terrorists attacked the Dusit D2 hotel complex. 5 hours there, so. But everything, the strange thing, not the strange thing, but traditionally I would see myself as unlucky. And if someone had said, this is going to happen on your watch, I'd normally say, well, I'm probably going to be on leave, somewhere else, not available, don't hear about it. But from the moment I dropped that man off, and he said, may God bless you many times this day, everything was perfect. I got my hair cut. I went and got my hair cut after that. Had a haircut. I then had lunch. I then got home, had a shower. And again, I'm not going to go into detail of the incident, but every second counted. And if anything then was off, everything was just perfect. And then not only perfect then, but the whole, everything else was just like, yeah.
What were you doing when the incident kicked off?
I just got out of the shower.
How did you hear about it?
A friend of mine who was in the complex called me and was like, Chris, there's a complex attack going on. I'm not armed. I'm laying low in my office. You got to come down here. So I'm on my way. I didn't know where it was. I'd never been there before. Put it in my sat-nav and went and responded.
Now, from what I understand, you were told to stand down and not enter.
No.
That's not true.
No. I didn't, no. I just, the difference is I had no authority. So no one had told me to go and no one told me not to go.
Did you feel compelled to go?
Yeah.
Did anybody go with you?
Not initially. But that's, again, we're going into this grey area now of what I can say, can't say. But the bottom line is I turned up with a view to doing something else and people were being murdered. And I heard it. I heard a woman, I had gunfire grenades going off. I asked, and I assumed that was people dealing with the terrorists. And I was like, hey, special forces in there, police in there. And the security guard, no one's there, no one's here yet, no one's in there. Around about that same time, I heard a woman scream, and then I heard gunfire, and that cut the scream off. And I realised that woman had just been murdered, or someone just been shot. And I was like, right, I'm going in. And then the rest is history, and not really up for discussion at this point.
Can I ask you yes or no questions?
You can ask me and I'll just maybe say, if I can't comment, I won't comment. I'll say no comment.
Did you engage anybody when you entered the building? Did you personally save anybody from that building?
I think there's video evidence of someone who looks like me doing stuff like that.
How many people did that individual that looks like you save?
Allegedly, people say 700. That's
700
That's
people.
what people have said that I'm responsible for saving that day. And I don't think I'm going into any like legal area here, but I mean, maybe from the view of the MOD, they might be like sharpening their knives right now for what I've said, not said. But you know, I went in alone, but then it became a team effort with some remarkable individuals.
Kenyans?
Yes.
How uncomfortable are you right now?
Pretty uncomfortable. So,
is there anything you want me to ask you?
No, I mean, we can just talk about, again, I think the whole incident, people can see, and the only thing that I can add to the incident is like things that I did inside there and things that happened. And I can, and people have got good imagination, so they can imagine what happened inside there. So I don't need to upset people and break any kind of rules. But that incident happened, and then it finished the next day, and I was there throughout. And I'm just not going to say about what I did exactly. People can probably work it out. But it was the most remarkable day of my life, and I've done close to 1,000 door kicking missions, and there's nothing was ever like that day. Nothing. And people talk about flow state, and whether it be training, I still do CQB today, and you still enter that flow state when you cross the threshold, whatever that be, whether it be skydiving, whether it be a CQB, whether it be some sort of sporting event. There's, when you get dialed in and you like it's on. That day is, I unlocked some sort of superpower on that day. When I crossed that threshold or whatever that point was, it felt like I could see further. I could hear things. I could move faster. I was stronger. My mental agility. I really unlocked this like flow state, which was like, I'd have similar incidents before my military career, but on that day.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Sean Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes, so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.
First engagement.
It was the first time I got blown up by a suicide bomber was on that deployment. This kid walked out, he must have been 13, 14. I walked past him and I remember it going bang behind me. And I'm going to be honest with you, the first thing I thought was, fucking hell, I'm glad that whatever it is, it wasn't me.
So how long was it until you found out that you had killed him?
That night.
Days?
I've been in a bunch of ID blasts now. It's so difficult.
Especially when your hands are tied.
It was the first time I ever engaged anybody was on that deployment. It was the first time I got blown up by a suicide bomber was on that deployment. Dealt with casualties on that deployment. It all happened, but it was quite steady tempo, if that makes sense. Unlike the next deployment where it was just straight off the bat, fucking full send. But I did learn a lot.
What was your first engagement?
It's actually quite a funny story. I mean, I shouldn't say, but it's quite funny. So we were given a warning, basically, that there was a suicide bomber on a motorbike, dressed in black, shaved head, and there was two of them. And we were told to stop anyone that looked or fitted that description. Now, you've been to Afghanistan. That's not uncommon. The shaved head's a little bit rare, but apart from that, you see that shit all the time, so it's very difficult. But I remember I was on a sentry position overlooking this big dust bowl. It was probably about 600-700 meters open area, and we had a satellite patrol that had gone off, and this motorbike blew through an Afghan checkpoint across this open ground, and someone had fired a pen flare, the little pen flares. That was we had an escalation process. So it was like pen flare, warning shot, lethal force, etc. So the guy on the bottom sanger had done that whole thing. He fired the pen flare, fired a warning shot, and this dude was driving across, and it was the right people. So I'm up there with a mini-me, so it's like a saw, right? So I'm like, fuck it, like
a belt-fed machine gun.
It was a fucking belt-fed machine gun, yeah. And I was good with it. That was my weapon system, like. I'm pretty good at dishing out the shit with a belt-fed weapon system, and that was my gun, and I knew what to do with it. So I'm out, boom, and I see it's like something out of a film. Like you just see the rounds coming up, all this dust bolt coming up, all this dust would go, and then the bike would keep going. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm not even hitting this dude. And I'm like, so I unloaded the belt. It was a 50 round belt. And you can just see it was like something out of a cartoon. It was like every time the rounds would hit the ground and the dust would come up, the bike would come out at the end of it. And I'm like, I'm there. So I'm not leading it. I can't be missing. There's no chance I'm not hit this. And it drives off, goes through the thing. And I'm like, fuck, like, this is my moment. Like, I've been waiting for this. Not waiting for it, but like, this is what I've been preparing for. I'm training for this, And I fucking missed the dudes. I didn't fucking get them. So I'm fucking embarrassed. My patrol, or the other half of the patrol comes in, and they're all laughing. They're like, fucking hell, what the fuck were you doing on that sanger with that machine gun? And I'm like, fucking hell, dude, I'm trying to hit. This is about 400 meters, a moving target. It's not an easy shot, but I have got a belt-fed weapon that I do know how to use. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I don't know. I was leading it. I had it on my sight. It was on iron sights. But I was like, I had it. I just can't believe it. I'm sorry. And He goes, no, we did see some blood when they came through this little gate, this little entrance where the bike went. He's like, yeah, there's blood there. Like, you might have got something. It wasn't until that night we went out and did a patrol, overwatch patrol for these convoys that used to come in. And we just have to basically picket the line. It was a pain in the ass, but we had to go and do it like 6 hours just sat on a roof sometime. And the A&A commander came up and he was like, yeah, you killed two Taliban commanders. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, they turned up at the local mosque and they'd been fucking riddled all up the side and on the legs. Fair play to the dude on the bike, he kept going. But like, yeah, we got him, I got him. And it felt like a bit of a weird one for me because I was like, you expect to see the results of that. Does that make sense?
I know exactly.
Do you know what I mean by that?
I know exactly what you mean.
It's a weird one, isn't it?
What caliber was it? I'm just curious.
5.56.
See, that's something we learned in what I think it was 2006 is we would be hitting guys and we wouldn't realize that we were hitting them because, you know, the velocity in the round, the green tip rounds, the armor piercing rounds would just fly right through them. And then you would see them and they had the little bitty pinholes.
Yep. It's not what you think.
You know, and then we started stacking our magazines and doing 2 green tip, 177 grain, 2 green tip, 177 grain. And once we switched to 77 grain, a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's interesting that it took so long for those lessons learned to kind of percolate throughout all of the military.
I had no idea.
All of it.
Yep.
And it's like nobody was communicating that.
No.
We shouldn't have been using green tip.
No.
We weren't fighting guys with body armor.
No.
And so actually I think we were doing 2 77s and 1 green tip. That way we could punch through a car easier.
See you later.
What's tallest building?
What do you think, Sean?
We're high.
So how long was it until you found out that you had killed him?
That night.
Days?
It was that night. Yeah. Which for me, it was more a sense of relief. I'll be honest. Like, I don't attach much, certainly no empathy for them. But it was kind of it was anticlimactic in a weird way. But it was more relief that the guys in the rest of my platoon didn't think I was no good with that machine gun. It was like, I fucking told you. I knew I did. And they're like, yeah, no, good effort. But yeah, it was a bit of a surreal moment. They're like, yeah, they went to the mosque and they bled out. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll take it, you know. But it didn't feel real because I didn't later on in my career.
You didn't see it.
Didn't see it. Didn't feel it. No, I've been as close as you and me are multiple times with live engagements. That's a different fucking feeling. You can fucking see the rounds rip through a human being that way. But like in this case, it was distance. I don't know if you've ever read that book On Killing. Have you ever read it? It's about proximity, a lot of it, isn't it? In the different natures and types. It's like artillery guys and mortar guys don't bat an eyelid. But if you're this close, it's slightly different. That came later. There was a couple of other engagements I had on that deployment. I dropped a couple of people that were engaging us or maneuvering around us. But again, the rules of engagement were very strict and professional. It was like we had an escalation process. Now, I don't want to talk about this too much, but what I will say is that coin theory shit about winning the population to win the war and courageous restraint, it cost people's lives because it was not understood and it was not employed, and you're fighting an enemy that does not give a fuck. So whoever came up with that, well done, because I think they've got blood on their hands, in my opinion, because what you did was you restricted a bunch of young Marines, paratroopers, infantrymen from all over the coalition, and you put this stuff in their head, which caused them to have doubt, which then caused them to lose their lives. And I'll stand by that.
It slows the decision-making
Slows the decision-making process. And we'll talk about this later on, but you cannot put doubt in people's minds. You've got to trust people to make the right decision. Like, the Commando Training Center is exemplary as a center of excellence for producing professional soldiers. Do not start to limit them or put their hands behind their backs and send them into these situations with that doubt in the back of their head that if they do something wrong, they're going to go to prison. This is some real stuff, and we'll talk about it later, but this is some real bullshit that needs to be addressed because it costs people's lives, you know. It was a hard tour. It was a long tour. It was the first time I got blown up with a suicide bomber on that one. It was right towards the end of it. We were coming down. Do you ever go to Fob Jackson in Sanger? Did you ever make it up there?
No.
So there's this bridge, basically. I won't bore you with the details, but we were on a long patrol. We were coming back, and it was towards the end. Usually we're very good at keeping distances between people, but this kid walked out. He must have been 13, 14. I walked past him. I walked right past him, and he looked like he looked like he was some sort of disability. He didn't look the full ticket, if you know what I mean. And I kind of like watched him walk past, and I remember it going bang behind me. And I'm going to be honest with you, the first thing I thought was, fucking hell, I'm glad that whatever it is, I'm glad it wasn't me. That's my first thought, and I don't care what anyone says. I've suffered with this for a long time. Like, I've been in a bunch of IED blasts now. I've been blown up with suicide bombers on 3 occasions, 4 or 5 IED blasts in close proximity, and it took me a long time to get over the fact that the first thing I ever thought was, fucking hell, I'm glad it's not me. And I hate that. I hate that about me. I hate that I felt like that, you know, like, but it was. I'll be honest, that's how I felt. Luckily we were all right. The suicide vest was of shit quality. It did more damage to him than it did to anyone else. But we took some fragmentation and some injuries, but nothing catastrophic. Everyone walking wounded for the most part.
But I mean, a lot of times they would use people with disabilities for that.
Oh yeah. Of the 3 times I've been blown up with suicide bombers, I think they're all under the age of 15.
Yeah, I remember in 2005 they would line bicycle tires with explosives and have a kid ride up and try to blow it.
When you're dealing with an enemy that's got that mentality, it's so difficult.
Especially when your hands are tied.
Especially when your hands are tied, you know? Like, as my career progressed, the proximity between me and enemy forces is a fucking hard line for me. Like, you'll get a warning if there's time and it's appropriate, but if you come within proximity of me in those situations, then you can stand by because I know what's coming. Like, I don't need to be blown up again to learn those lessons. And this is what I'm talking about. You have to transfer experience, hard-earned experience, into learning, you know, and sometimes that takes a little bit of adjustment in the mindset and the mentality that you had or have. But yeah, I certainly learned a lot. That was a good deployment for me, and a good deployment in terms of learning my trade, cutting my teeth, so to speak.
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.